Alright folks, welcome back. Today we're going to discuss Lesson 5, Installing and Configuring Desktop Applications and Windows Store Apps. This will cover Exam Objective 2.2. We're going to be talking a little bit today about configuring default program settings, modifying file associations, compatibility issues, and installation and repair of applications through the using the installer. And of course managing access to the Windows Store. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk a little bit about configuring program defaults. Well, what's a program default? Well, every file in the Windows environment has an extension. .exe, .doc, .wav. These are all file extensions at the end of a file. And the whole point of a file extension in the Windows environment is to tell Windows what program, what executable program is responsible for launching or running that file. Now, we call that associating a file with a specific program or an extension with a specific program. With those associations, we can then simply go in and find a file. We can double click the file, and then the application will launch because it knows that that application is associated with those files. This is a convenience factor, really. Otherwise, you'd have to always go and find the program, launch the program, then find the file that you want to bring into that program. So by launching the application from within the actual file, you can save yourself a little bit of time and convenience. So we do this through what's called the Default Programs Interface. And the Default Programs Interface has been around for a while, several incarnations of Windows, from XP, Windows 7, Vista, etc. We are probably familiar with that. By right-clicking on any particular file, one of the options would be set a default program to open this file. And you would go in and you could then pick from a list of executable programs or browse to an executable program that you could then set to run with that executable, that file extension on your Windows environment. The same process is true in today's Windows 8 environment. So there are two methods to think about this. We can either think about using or creating file associations by choosing a program through the Default Programs Control Panel, selecting a program, and then choosing the file types that you want to associate with it. The other way that we can look at this is by selecting a file type and then choosing the program to be associated with it like we did in the previous versions of Windows. So here is where you find the Default Program Interface. Whereas before you could right click on a file, now you can actually find it in the control panel under Default Programs. You'll see that we've actually taken several utilities and combined them into this utility for convenience sake. So we can choose your default programs, we can associate file types, we can change autoplay options, which we'll talk about more in a minute, and we can set program access and computer defaults basically to discern what kind of tasks are going to be associated with certain programs. So let's look at each of these in some detail. In this particular screen, we have decided to choose a program and set a specific default list of file types associated with this program. We have two options that are available here. We can either set the program as the default for all file types and protocols that can be opened by that program, or we can choose defaults for this program. If you choose defaults for this program, you'll get a screen that looks like this. This is where you can actually go in. It will list all the protocols or file associations associated with that particular executable, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to run with that specific executable in mind. Perhaps you want to go in and choose a specific file type and associate programs to run from that file type. You can do that too. You'll end up with a screen that looks like this. Under Default Programs Set Associations, you'll see that every file extension that has been recorded in your Windows environment is available to you to micromanage the specific executables you want to run on those extensions. Okay? So you would go in, you simply highlight the one you want, change program, and away you go. Now, another thing that we can do in this utility is change the autoplay settings. The whole point of autoplay is that it defines the actions that Windows takes when you insert some sort of removable medium into your device. It could be a CD, a DVD, or USB flash drive. And by default, in previous incarnations of Windows, the default for autoplay was on. This allowed malware to take advantage of the autoplay feature and install, most oftentimes in an administrator environment, its payload onto your device, creating all kinds of havoc. That's why administrators, for several years now, have disabled the autoplay in most corporate settings. Autoplay, up until now, has been an all or nothing kind of deal. We could go in and we could say we're going to either allow autoplay to run from this piece of media or we're not. Now we have the option of going in and selecting what to do with specific types of media for a particular drive. So, for instance, pictures, videos, music, and mixed content, we can actually go in and choose what kind of autoplay options we want to have for that particular removable device. This allows us a little more granularity when it comes to the autoplay feature. We can also set program access defaults. We do this also through the default programs control panel. The whole point is that we can create a program configuration that's going to specify which applications Windows 8 should use to perform some specific tasks on your system. These tasks include browsing the web, sending email, and playing media files. We have several options available. We can select an all Microsoft solution. We can stick with whatever applications the system is currently using, or we can choose a hybrid combination of the two. This is the screen that you get when you actually go into the program access and computer defaults. Here we can see we have options to change our web browser, our email program, media player, instant messaging, and even the virtual machine for our Java. We can go in and we can select custom solutions for each of these. Probably I'll talk a moment about the Windows installer. The Windows installer is a software installation, removal, and repair tool. It's been around for years. It usually has the .msi extension associated with it, so if you see some file with .msi, you know immediately. It is a Windows installer utility that's designed to manage and install a certain application. It can simplify, or has been designed to simplify the process of deploying applications in Windows computers. Indeed, as administrators, we're familiar with MSI files. We can go in and create and configure and alter MSI files to deploy over a network, to deploy quietly, and so on and so forth, oftentimes with Windows Deployment Toolkit or SCCM. So the Windows installer is really a tool that we're going to use as administrators. The MSI exec exe tool is built into Windows operating systems from XP on forward, and it allows administrators to customize install packages for deployment, as I just said. Now, one of the ways that we do that is we do that by creating executable, command line executable callouts, and this is some of the options that are available. We can also use it on the specific device. Say for instance we know that we have a package on the device that we want to run or reinstall. We can do that from the command line using the MSI exec with whatever parameters, options, and parameters associated with it. So what I'm showing you here on this screen, it's also in the book, is some potential options that you may want to use with your Windows installer. This is not something I'm going to test you on. It's really something I want you just to be aware of, that you do have this option, or we do use the MSI exec command line tool as part of our administrator processes when we want to deploy particularly deploy over a network a wide variety of applications. But for the general user, you can use this in command line mode to do a quiet install, to do a passive or unattended install. We can set the user interface level through the MSI install options, and we can even go in and say that we want to do an administrative install, which will install the product on the network. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about configuring application compatibility. This is kind of an important topic because we've had compatibility issues with programs ever since we came out with more than one version of an operating system. We all like to upgrade to the newest operating system with all the bells and whistles, but oftentimes we would really much enjoy to take along some of the applications that we've been using in our previous operating system in the past. Oftentimes the installation of applications or trying to use applications that we used in previous versions of our Windows operating system has met with some disastrous consequences. That's why we have the Compatibility Troubleshooter. The Compatibility Troubleshooter is a wizard-based solution that administrators or even users can use to automatically configure how an executable file is going to run in that specific Windows environment. In order to run the Compatibility Troubleshooter, it's just like running it in previous incarnations of Windows. You simply right-click on a specific executable file, or even the shortcut of the file will be sufficient, and then select Troubleshoot Compatibility, and then the troubleshooter will launch. Now when it launches, you're going to get two options. First of all, it's going to try to do a quick check on the program, and then it's going to try to give you some recommended settings. The other option is to run the advanced troubleshooting option. If you do, you'll get a screen that looks like this. This will allow you to check the specific symptoms that your program is exhibiting. When you do, then the Program Compatibility Troubleshooter is going to try to figure out, based on those symptoms, what kind of issues that program is having, and then come up with some solutions for that compatibility issue, whether that's running it in XP mode, Service Pack 2 mode, running it with administrator settings, etc. You also have the ability to configure those settings manually. If you're not happy with the recommendations, or you know specifically what settings need to be applied to a specific executable in order for it to run, that's great. We can do that simply by going into the property sheet for the specific application's executable file and selecting the Compatibility tab, and then you can go in and change from the Compatibility tab some options. For instance, I can choose whether or not I want to reduce color mode, whether 8-bit or 16-bit. I can choose to run in a smaller screen. A lot of older applications have trouble running in these wider screen environments, so maybe you want to reduce it back to 640 by 480. Maybe I don't want to have scaling turned on so that it won't resize due to large font and things like that. Or, which is a lot of times the case, maybe the program needs to run with administrator level settings. This is particularly true with a lot of older programs. It took programmers years and years to finally figure out that administrators quit giving users administrative privileges on the machine. This created and still does create some issues when it comes to deploying applications across a network, where we actually have to go in and configure those applications to run with administrative settings. One of the nice things about running this program as an administrator is that you're not having to have the user log in as an administrator and run the entire environment as an administrator. It's only going to apply to that specific program, thus reducing the chance of malware taking advantage or exploiting those administrative privileges on the machine. Setting the compatibility mode screen, this is the compatibility tab, just to give you an option. I'll give you a look at what the property sheet looks like for this. As you can see, we have the choice of choosing from a specific operating system mode to run in, and then we can go in and actually further scale those settings by some of the options that you see here. We can also do that for all users associated with this program, so that the users, no matter which user logs into the box, the program will run consistently for all those users. Okay. We can go in and configure the application compatibility policies through group policy as well. Perhaps more importantly, say I don't want my users to be bothered with things like compatibility warnings. I can go in through the group policy, typing either gpedit, using the MSC snap-in tool, and going in and finding the group policy setting, which looks like this, the group policy management editor. And here you can see we're going into the Application Compatibility Diagnostics, and here's a list of the things that we can change. We can say we can turn off notifying block drivers, or notifying or detecting compatibility issues with applications, detecting applications that can't run in the UAC. We can disable all these for our users so that this will become strictly an administrative tool and not something that our users have to be bothered with or should use when trying to, say, install their own applications on a system. Alright, I also want to talk a little bit about installing and configuring Windows Store apps. The Windows Store has been around for a while. It is available through Microsoft. Purchasing or downloading one of the thousands of apps that are available for Windows 7 or 8.1 used through the Windows Store does give you some advantages. First and foremost is that all the apps that are listed within the store have met the minimum criteria for Microsoft as far as stability, quality, and functionality. That means that no matter what app you purchase or download for free over through the store, you should be given a fairly consistent experience when it comes to how well it will run on your Windows 8 machine. In order to use the Windows Store, you will need a Microsoft account, previously known as a Windows Live account. This basically includes an email address and a password to log into the Windows 8 Store. Using the Microsoft account will enable you not only to access the store apps, but you will be allowed to synchronize key files and settings in the cloud. And you will be able to install your Windows Store apps on 5 devices. It doesn't matter which device it is, but up to 5 devices, providing you with somewhat of a consistent interface across all of the devices. Likewise, another advantage of using the Windows Store to download your apps is that Microsoft is going to check on a daily basis to see from the apps that you've downloaded which ones need to be updated in some way, shape, or form. If updates are found, then on your user interface you're going to see a number appear on the specific store tile for that app. If you want to see which actual apps are going to require updates, you just click on the store tile and then select the updates link, and then all of the apps associated with updates will be visible. By default, on your system, all the updates are selected automatically, and clicking install will start the update process. However, this is something you can choose from a variety of settings to alter. Alright, so just a quick summary. The Set Default Programs interface, which has been around a while now in the Windows environment, will enable you to specify what file types are going to be associated with specific applications. When those associations are in place, you can simply double click on a file. It's going to launch within that specific application and give you, the user, a little more convenience. Now, the Windows installer, just for our reference point, is a software installation repair removal tool. It simplifies the process deploying applications, specifically if you're an administrator and you're deploying applications over a network environment. The installer tool can be your friend because it's highly configurable. You can create deployment files with specific options and choices to deploy those operating systems seamlessly over your network. You can also use them as a user. You can actually go in from the command line and use the Microsoft installer to reinstall or repair or provide additional functionality to any application that has been installed on your system, provided that the install files still remain on the system. Windows 8 includes a number of new security features that can alter the ability of certain applications to run. This has been true for other incarnations of Windows as well. And therefore, we have to go in as administrators and look at the compatibility of all the legacy applications on our systems. We use the Program Compatibility Troubleshooter to do this. It's designed as a wizard interface. It's easily accessible, supposed to be pretty understandable to the end user. In some network environments, enterprise network environments, we may want to manage those compatibility issues ourselves, and therefore we will turn off the compatibility notifications for our users using group policy. Now, we can either do that through the local group policy, as I talked about, using that GP edit, or if we're on a domain, which most corporate institutions are, we can do that through the domain group policy as well on the domain server. The Windows Store is Microsoft's central location for distributing, purchasing Windows apps. It gives us a consistent view, a consistent deployment of those apps. There are benefits of the Windows app. Of course, the Windows app is represented on a tile in the Windows Store. So selecting that tile will take you to the purchase page. There I can go in and I can figure out how to install a specific app. I can install up to 5 apps on multiple network resources and without any kind of penalty. And of course I can reinstall an app that's been deleted as well, simply by clicking on that and doing a reinstall. So Windows keeps tabs on all that for you. When updates are ready for the Windows apps, then you're going to get a number indicator, which is going to appear on your store tile. By default, those updates are going to be already downloaded onto the machine, but you will have to initiate that actual update process. I can, of course, turn off automatic updates through the app updates. I can do this through group policy, which can then be configured through the local group policy. Or if you're a domain administrator, I can do this for all my systems on the domain as well. Likewise, I have the ability to disable the access to the Windows Store. I can do this via local group policy or through the group policy management console. Okay, that's all I've got for lesson 5. Stay tuned for lesson 6 and we'll talk to you later.